Your name and what you are and what you do and how you got involved in the paranormal, and then we'll get to Ouija. So, action.
My name is Dave Schrader, and I'm the host of Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. We've been around for 7 years exploring ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, psychic phenomena, monsters, myths, and legends.
How did you get interested in this to start off with?
Actually, a lot of people always want to know, when did I start investigating the paranormal? It seems that paranormal's investigated me. I've had experiences since I was a kid, having my grandmother visit me shortly after her death when I was about 3 years old, to visitations from my grandfather, visitations from ghosts that lived in the home that I grew up in. I had a Bigfoot sighting when I was about 12 years old in Foley, Alabama, and had UFO sightings over Trout Lake, Washington, about 4.5 years ago.
Wow. So, are you a natural skeptic that's been overwhelmed by empirical evidence, or a believer that's been supplanted with all this evidence?
Well, I put myself in kind of a strange category. I'm a skeptical believer. I've had experiences of all types, and I believe that there is something going on around us that is greater than what we believe or perceive. However, I'm skeptical in the sense that I don't believe every story, and I do believe that people are quick to jump to conclusions, and I know I've been guilty of that myself over the years.
And so let's go into the Ouija board a bit. For me, I see the Ouija board as the perfect symbol for the paranormal, in that it is ostensibly this tool to get communicating to the other side, if another side exists. Bob Murch, the expert here, my partner, doesn't believe the other side really exists in a sense. He doesn't believe in the paranormal. What do you think the Ouija board is, and how do you think it works, and what do you think it represents?
I grew up as a child of the 70s, so of course my major influence of the Ouija board came from the Exorcist movie, like probably 90% of the rest of the country, or the world probably at this point. And, I was reticent. I won't say I didn't play with it as a kid. We certainly tried, and we'd have fun and weird people out, and I'm not quite sure I know exactly what runs the Ouija board. I can tell you that my original beliefs were that it might have been something dark, or that there might be some kind of evil involved in that. But my paradigm has shifted over the years. I mean, basically you're looking at a piece of cardboard and plastic, and that's inherently not evil, or Barbie would have been banned years ago, right?
Sure.
So with the Ouija board, I think a lot of what happens with the Ouija board is what we as the human race do to it. It's our intent. It's what we put into that. And it works the same with a lot of the equipment that we use in the paranormal field. So I think that Ouija board kind of works as a subconscious guide for our this. I think Ouija works as a subconscious guide for our inner questions, things that we want to know, answers that we want to have. I think that's what a lot of people get, and I think there's a little bit more of the pushing than we would lead each other to believe going on the board. Hopeful answers coming through that way. A lot of times people get involved in playing with the Ouija board, and they're doing it at parties and, as youth, and screwing around with it. And they're looking for a cheap thrill and a scare. And, I think you go into it with that intent, and that's exactly what you're going to get. There's been some amazing books that were written that are from the light and have great messages that have been shared. And they claim they got the entire thing transcribed right from the Ouija board.
So really, it's a portal. It is what you make of it in your view, in terms of who you call on that spiritual cell phone. And does it solidify your belief in the paranormal because it's possible? Is it a piece of evidence confirming to you that there is another dimension or world out there? Does it support that belief?
It's hard to pin down exactly what my beliefs are on the Ouija board. Things always shift. For every one question I get answered, 2 or 3 more pop open. I think that something's going on. Again, I don't know if it's coming from us, from alternate realities, from the spirit world, or maybe a combination of all of the above. It's intriguing. I think it's fun, and because we don't have that answer, that's what keeps people interested in Ouija. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's kind of the opportunity that maybe we are making that contact one more time with somebody that we miss or love or are intrigued by. It's reaching out and seeing if Elvis is really listening, and getting the responses back as a fan. It's a fun tool. I think it's interesting, and I've certainly changed from the fear mongering that I was a part of for many years into someone that believes that what you put into it, I think, is what you get out.
So let's talk about that transition. You were afraid of it, or you didn't think it was a positive thing. What or who changed your mind, and how that happened?
Actually, funny story. The transition began for me slowly. As a paranormal investigator, it's just easier to take certain things and put them away. And so many of the weird calls that we would get about hauntings that had gone horribly wrong, the story would always start off the same. So I was playing with the Ouija board with my friends, and now the walls are bleeding, and the cat's floating, and funny things are going on like that. So we found that there was this base, there was this, the one contextual unit that we kept saying was people that were having really what they considered bad things were dealing with the Ouija board. So originally I was telling people, well, let's stop playing with the Ouija board. Just take the Ouija board out of the picture altogether. Don't be a part of that world. And, buying into the fact that we don't know if we're opening up portals, we don't know what we're getting into. So it might be a good idea to just put them away. But as we continue to grow and learn, I've heard some fascinating ideas. Chris Fleming, the psychic and sensitive, told me, the one problem I have with Ouija, Dave, I don't think it's evil, but it's like you're single now and you want to go out into the dating world. And you've been out of the loop for a while and you want some advice. So you just pick up the phone and randomly call any number at large and you ask, hey, so I need some advice. How do I start getting back into the dating world? And this person on the other end could be some, 45-year-old virgin living in his mom's basement covered in Cheeto dust playing World of Warcraft, and you're asking him for advice on how to go back into the dating world. You don't know who it is you're communicating with. You don't know what's coming through. So he said he thinks that asking for advice and maybe monitoring what you do with the Ouija board and what you use it for is the best way to go. And then, of course, Bob Murch, who's the historian and works with Hasbro, was introduced to me a number of years ago. And he kind of shifted my paradigm by showing me how many years this has been around and how popular it was. I had no idea there were songs about the Ouija, that there were references, all going back even to like the I Love Lucy TV series. And it was always something as a popularized game, a fun thing for people to do between each other, to share these intimate moments and try to make these communications one way or another. And when I started looking at it from that vein, it took a lot of the stigma and a lot of the fear away from it for me. And then I started realizing again that what you put into it is kind of what you get out of it. If you go into it with fear and you're terrified of what might come through, you're probably going to end up with something negative. But that's probably just some composition of what you're putting out onto the board.
Self-fulfilling prophecy,
Right.
perhaps. How many times have you played with it, and have you had any amazing experiences, wrong, right, up or down, or have you not played with it much?
I played with the Ouija board a lot when I was a teenager. And I remember being at a party. Probably the strangest thing we ever had happen was just a goofy teenage party for an evening, and we were doing the light as a board, stiff as a feather game, and some of the other weird little things you do as teenagers. And then they said, hey, let's break out the Ouija board and try to make communication. So a bunch of us got it out and we were playing with it, and it's zipping around and giving us messages and acting really weird. And I remember we all kind of stood up just feeling drained after hours of playing all these games and being a part of that paranormal culture. And as we're standing there just kind of talking and feeling drained, the Ouija board was sitting on the coffee table and the planchette was sitting in the middle of it. And I remember the planchette just began to rock and on the board. And we all turned to look back, and then was there something, maybe a train going by where I lived? There was trains that ran past. Was there something that was causing this? But then as it began to tremble, it started to shake a little harder and tap the board, and then boom, flew right off the board. Man, you never saw a house clear out of teenagers faster than that night. But that was the only weird experience I've ever had with it.
That's a huge weird experience.
Yeah.
What's your explanation of that?
I have absolutely no explanation for that. I have hypotheses. There was a bunch of teenagers that were coming of age and a lot of PK energy and a lot of libido, and you've got boys and girls mixing in a parentless party, and all this energy going, and all of us focused on one thing and watching it intently. A party of 20 kids and 5 of them moving this planchette around. I think you focus all that energy on any one thing, you're going to have some residual tremors, and I think that might have just been it, just all that hyped up energy.
So you err on the side of a rational explanation that's bound by physics and or metaphysics even, but not that it was a ghost or demon like pushing it off. Is where you can.
People love to jump to demon.
Sure.
And truthfully, I believe a demon's probably got a little bit more power than just throwing a planchette off a Ouija board. I believe if a demon's going to mess with me, I'm going to know it's a demon. I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to wonder if it's a demon. Is it a ghost? There's no real way for me to tell. Like, I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I didn't feel anybody grab me and then throw the planchette across the board. So I'm hard pressed to give an answer either way of was it a ghost or was it us? Was it metaphysical? Was it PK energy being thrown off? Or was there some other force that was in play here?
How about it being marketed for 8-year-olds and above at Toys R Us? Is that appropriate, or should it be for adults, who know what they're getting themselves into?
Let's face it, what's appropriate should be in the hands of the parents that buy the items for their kids. I see kids that are playing with toys that I think are very inappropriate, that are open for any age. Kids that sit in front of the idiot box playing video games all day long. Their babysitter is TV and a video game system. Is that any more dangerous than playing with a piece of cardboard and plastic? No, but everything should be done in moderation. And if kids have an interest in it, I think if you plant them with fear and you plant them with this, it's going to cause more trouble than good. I think looking at it and working it together and maybe trying to explore and explain to kids how this works, what the many theories are, I think that's a much better way to go about things.
You're about to do the Ouija experiment tonight?
Yes.
Can you tell me about your ideas for it, or your objectives, or what you hope? I mean, here we are before it. What are tell me what's about to happen, or what your idea is.
Well, we're planning on doing a Ouija board experiment here tonight, and I just thought it'd be interesting if we have some people that are interested in this. I know a lot of people have come up to me and they said, I really want to watch. I don't want to be the one to touch the Ouija board, and I don't want to be a part of that. And I said, that'd be great. Come watch it and get a chance to hear from the different people there. My ideas were pretty simple. I think placing random words in envelopes and giving those envelopes to different people that are working the Ouija board. If there is some kind of spirit involved, can they help us spell out the word that's inside that I'm sorry. Putting words inside of an envelope and then giving them to random people in the group. If the spirits are there, are they able to help maneuver this planchette to actually spell out the words that are in these envelopes?
So it's a true double-blind experiment.
Right, just doing a double-blind experiment and having fun and getting a chance to get back to it. Maybe telegraphing messages. What if at one end of the room I sit down with Bob Murch and we start spelling out a word over and over by pushing the planchette, while across the room Jeff and Chris sit there waiting for the message to come through. Can we actually transmit a word to them that could be used? That would be a good way to figure